Um, I have heard. I haven't read anything on this, any actual of the scholarship yet. I've got stuff set up that I hope to get to soon, but I'm hearing more and more people talk about a second century date for Luke.
Hmm.
Do you buy this at all? Do you have you read this? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, yeah. It's strange, isn't it? I think there's this sort of urge amongst New Testament scholars to sort of to put it all into the first century, and that also makes things neat. If we can say, everything in the New Testament, everything that's canonical comes from the first century, and then the other stuff is second century. So I understand
you can kind of compartmentalize it and say it's there because it's early. Everything else is after.
Exactly. Yeah. And once you start saying things are maybe second century, then you have some awkward things about, what about non-canonical stuff that may well be early? Why is that not in the canon? And things get messy. But I mean, how do we know, given that these texts are not dated, how do we choose between 95 and 105 CE? But I do think Luke shows quite a lot of development, and say his attitude to women, the fact that, he's very keen on women sort of early on, but he does tend to limit their role in Acts. And that does make me think a little bit about the pastoral epistles, which again may well be early second century. I also think that Luke may well know Josephus's Antiquities. Steve Mason and his work has sort of persuaded me on that. So
he talks about Luke's knowledge of Josephus?
Yeah. Okay. So if the Antiquities comes from around about 95 or so, again, maybe they're both writing in Rome. Again, we don't know where Luke is writing, but that might tip things over into early second century. But how do we know? But I think it seems reasonable enough.
Now, one of the texts that comes up a lot on social media, I think there are a lot of people who would have loved for Gnosticism to have won out in early Christianity, but the Gospel of Thomas comes up an awful lot, and my understanding of this is that, well, one, this is a sayings gospel. It's just a collection of logia, of sayings, utterances. And so there's no narrative framework that can help us kind of gain any purchase on much of a dating. But do you think that there are sayings in the Gospel of Thomas that could predate and be independent of the canonical Gospels, or do you think this is mostly coming from later and is mostly copying what the sayings of Jesus from the Gospels?
I think it's mainly later. Where we can compare things in the Gospel of Thomas with the canonical Gospels. Mark Goodacre has pointed out this strange thing that Thomas does, that the author sort of keeps the beginning and the end of something and sort of loses the bit in the middle. And you can sort of see the way he works with his source material there.